Hello, viewers. This is Dr. Qamar Cheema, and I have today with me Mr. Sumit Peer, and you have always a smiling face. Thank you very much, Sumit Peer, for being on my show.
Thank you, Mr. Cheema. Thanks for the invitation. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. So, Mr. Sumit, today I just wanted to have a conversation with you, and I wanted to have an understanding from our viewers about the startup ecosystem in India. We have heard about unicorns, we have heard about FDI, we have heard so much, and even we have heard that local investors are putting or the new ideas are coming. So, just can you just explain us that since you have a business background and you understand a lot of India is known these days because of the unicorns and all that. So and because of the startups. So how do you see the startups ecosystem in India? And then I will ask you questions further on that.
Thank you very much for the question. It's much appreciated. So let's get back to the core. You see, you have to look, Dr. Cheema, before Prime Minister Modi came into power. I'll give you some numbers which will, set the tone of the discussion. There were around 1,400 startups in India. In last 7 years or 8 years, 7.5, 8 years, we have now 71,000 registered startups in India. From 1,400 to 71,000 in 8 years. So in last 65, 66 years, we could do 1,400 startups. Now in last 7 years, we've done 71,000 registered startups. There may be some which are not registered. There may be some which are still budding, mushrooming. I'm talking about registered and established startups. So it has been a phenomenal change and the jump in the number of startups what we have seen in India, because the Honorable Prime Minister came with a policy, was Make in India, Startup India. There were schemes like Mudra scheme, wherein loans were given, small loans were given, wherein entrepreneurship was promoted. So the idea of promoting entrepreneurship as a core to the development of society and building the ecosystem around it. Ecosystem is loan waivers, tax waivers, the government facilities, incubation centers, promoting the idea of startups, going and talking how much of innovation can we bring to the table, and now focusing the startups to the areas which are of global need, where the global innovation is required. Now capitalizing the young minds, telling them, look, it's not about finding a job, it's also about giving a job. And incidentally, let me give you one more interesting data, because I always believe in putting perspective vis-a-vis data. Now, there are around 450 districts. We have around 700 odd districts in India. There are around 450 districts, Dr. Cheema, where we have a startup. So it's not only limited to a Delhi, Mumbai, or a Chennai kind of a scenario, or Bangalore. They are pretty much everywhere. And 45% in these startups, and 45% of these startups, one of their director is a woman. Third point, they are employing around 750,000 people as we speak, sir. 750,000 is a big number. We have got $36 billion last year as a FDI for startups, not as a total FDI. The money which startups got in was $36 billion. Today, the valuation of the startups, which we do a combined valuation, is more than $300 billion. So these are some of the major numbers, and I've given you what was before 7 or 8 years, what happened in last 7, 8 years. So it is the vision which the government brings to the table, which the Honorable Prime Minister brought to the table, and the parallel ecosystem was started. We have the youth power. We have more than 800 million youth. We produce maximum number of doctors and engineers in the world. So skilled youth, empowered youth is there. And I wanted to mention this 45% women directors. It's not a male-dominated industry. It's not women are not there. Women empowerment is not happening. Though one of our famous opposition leaders does talk about women empowerment in a very strange and a very unique way of its own. But here, the real women empowerment has happened. And then ideas like Skill India, Startup India. There were a lot of schemes which were SEZs were formed, tax holidays were given, all kinds of things were done. So incubator centers were started. So we wanted to create a complete ecosystem. And let me take you one more example, which is very important here. Now, recently, around 6 months back, there was a show on our national TV where the Honorable Prime Minister was dedicating a new IM, Indian Institute of Management, a new complex somewhere in Kozhikode. I can't remember the place. I can't remember the place. It was somewhere in the southern part of the India. It was dedicating to the nation. Now, what did he say? Before that, there was a slogan, vocal for local. Promote your local brands, promote your local things. Now, if you look at Khadi, which was literally dying, it is a multi-billion today. It has a multi-billion industry today. It was completely revived. It is like a phoenix which literally rose from ashes. Now, local for vocal. The second thing, what did the Honorable Prime Minister say? Look, my job was to give you this IM, give you this big campus, 200 acres. I have put all the money. I'm going to give you all the education. And government education in India is literally free. It's not like America where you have to be rich and you must have few $100,000 to get a bachelor's degree. Here, the education literally in IITs, IIMs and all is practically free. It doesn't, it costs the same money what you spend in a canteen in a day in US in a typical American university, the same money you pay as a monthly fees here. Now, this is how the startups, now there, what did the Honorable Prime Minister say? He said, look, I want you guys to look at the industry around when you come. I don't want you to I don't want you to go and work for MNCs. I want you to create MNCs. I don't want you to become job seekers. I want you to become job givers. Look at the industry around and see where can we do the value addition in the global industry. Let's say we are making something and selling it raw for $100 a kilo. Now the finished product sells for $1,000. Now, if we cannot do the finished product, can we do a semi-finished product and sell the same thing for $300? That is the value addition you do. Go look at the industry around, do the value addition. And Honorable Prime Minister already has a vision. In each district of the country, there will be one engineering college, there will be one medical college. Now, which is government run, and then there are thousands of professional colleges which are run by private bodies, private entities. So with this kind of mushrooming of education, Skill India, wherein the skill of the people was developed, then it's a fully thought out vision. Startup India, Make in India, Skill India, Mudra loans, then engineering medical colleges, then tax holiday, availability of funds, then pitching the Indian entrepreneurs and Indian startups globally. Now, today we are the third biggest ecosystem of startups in the world. Third biggest in the world. And Cheema Saab, it happened only last 7 years. I gave you the numbers 1,400 to 71,000 registered startups. So, and the employment it created, the wealth it generated. So it was a full concerted 360-degree approach, which Government of India and the Honorable Prime Minister, under his vision, kind of, literally steered it through. He steered it through and made it a successful story. Now, today we have around, I think 4 unicorns are already there, and there are around, and in around 3 years, we'll have 100 unicorns. We have around 72 right now. So, sorry, we have 3 decacorns, where the valuation is more than $10 billion. We have 72 unicorns, and very soon we'll be crossing the 100 unicorns very fast. So, in 3 years, we'll be crossing more than 10 decacorns, where the valuation is more than $10 billion. So 72 unicorns are there. Soon we'll cross 100, and there are 3 with more than 10 billion valuation. And in a matter of time, there'll be 10 with more than $10 billion valuation. And the combined wealth of these, which they've generated, the valuation of them is $300 billion. Sir.
Well, Sumit, this is very interesting to see that how the government has given basically an environment or provided a favorable environment where to ask people to come into India or even to the locals to do business. One thing. The second thing I want to ask you, which is very important, that normally we have seen that there is a large section of Indian youth which basically believe on the government job or on the private sector jobs. So how do you think that what is the motivation for the youth that they should have their own startup rather having a job? Because in Pakistan we have largely heard that people want a government job or people want a semi government job where they are like comfortable. So and they have this cushion to having this government job always. So in India, what kind of environment does the youth want to have a government job, semi-government job, or the private jobs, or do they have this ambition that we have to go for the startups or we have to go for this entrepreneurship? How this environment in the youth or how this motivation in the youth stays? Because we have seen recently protests in India, which believe I think the youth which believed in the government job. So please do tell us this mindset of the youth as well, if you can.
You see, Dr. Cheema, youth is the biggest engine which drives our economy and where the future is going to be. 800 million youth. Average age of is less than 35 years. So we have the highest number of youth, skilled, educated youth in the world today. That's point number one. Now, if you look at the demographic divide of the India, there are various demographic divides. So a part of the youth might be only interested in a government job. A part of them might be only interested in running some small business. Some might be interested in a startup. Some might be even interested in unitary entrepreneurship. Unitary entrepreneurship is where it's not a startup, it's not registered. That's why I told there are 71,000 registered startups. A unitary entrepreneurship is never registered. It's a kind of one-man, two-man show, right? And then there are small businesses, again, which might be temporary and permanent. Again, they are not registered. But startup is a business which is registered and which is, which follows a particular pattern and which qualifies certain government set criteria. So now, what is the motivation in the youth? The motivation in the youth is that why you can't become the people who are giving jobs, and in the process you help to build the country. You help to spread you help to have the equal what do you call uh, and even spread of wealth across the length and breadth of country. Now, traditionally, what happens in only the major metros or the cities get congested because that is where the jobs are, that is where the opportunities are. Now, we have seen success stories in India. If you see Gurugram, if you see Bangalore, if you see Hyderabad today, if you see Chennai today, so these are all these are all places which have come up when the businesses, for that matter, Ahmedabad, and the businesses in these places have been pretty successful. Now, if you have the models which are there, which can be successful, why can't I bring it down to my hometown, my state, or my small town where I live? So that is the whole idea. So be your own boss, be your own master, earn money, give jobs, and help the country to build, help your local area to develop, give jobs, and bring up your village, your town to the mainframe, connected. You have the power. I mean, why youth have the capability of taking risks? The biggest thing with youth is they have the energy, they have the capability of taking risks. You are educated. Why don't you take a risk? Why don't you give it a shot? I mean, government jobs today in India, for your information, if you are now in a government job, let's say you're recruited today, you don't have a pension now. Now, the pension scheme is kind of, in 90% of the jobs or more is gone. So, there's no pension now. So, that pension used to be the biggest thing. Now, government jobs now, after Prime Minister Modi, have become a lot challenging and people have to literally work. Now, gone are those days where things were not happening. So it is not an enticement today that I only want a government job because I don't want to do anything. But here, I'm a youth, I want to do something and create wealth. Dr. Cheema, if you look at $1 billion, it's a huge money. Imagine you have 60-70% stake of the company. You are worth $700 million. And if you do the local rupee multiplication, I mean, you know the number, I know the number. So that has been also the enticer, and people have seen success stories. People have seen government wants it, economy needs it, country needs it. You get social recognition, you get economic wealth, you get government support, you are covered by media, you are covered by everybody. So you from a normal person, you become a literally contributory hero. I call them contributory heroes. So that thing is there, money is there, recognition is there, employment, and what we are doing by the virtue of this, we are channelizing the energy of the youth. Where is the maximum energy in the world? Is with the youth. So let's get that channelized and and at a very young age, get them into nation building process. So when you're doing this, you're paying taxes, you're giving employment, you're taking risk, you're developing products, you're developing innovation, you're on the media, you're pretty much everywhere. So, and instantly, Dr. Cheema, let me give you one fact here. 60% of the American GDP is controlled by small businesses. 60%. A lot of people don't know because people think when it comes to America, it's only Google and Microsoft. Google's and Microsoft's don't even control 10% of the GDP. 60% of the GDP is controlled by small businesses. Then the second biggest contributor is automobile. So now what is a small business? Small business is a small unitary entrepreneurship where I have one, two, three people. We can call it a startup. After startup, it becomes an enterprise. After a few years, first you're a startup. After a few years, and 4, 5 years, I don't know what is the criteria now, 5 or 7 years, then you become a full-fledged, enterprise. So now these are the people who control 70% of GDP. We have the case study, and if we see the untapped potential in our rural areas, if we see the untapped potential in our smaller towns, it is phenomenal. It's about what can you start. You will be 101% successful because the economy today we are looking at 3.3 trillion by GDP, and by PPP 11.75 trillion, and we are already number third in the world by PPP and number fifth by GDP. So there are opportunities. Inflation is under control. Everything is pretty much under control, and by the grace of God, we are getting the support of VCs. We are getting the support of international funds, wherein $36 billion was pumped into India. Now, anyway, India has taken over China in the FDI. What we are getting more FDI than China. Even Indian startups are getting a good amount of money. $36 billion is huge. So if you look at all round support is there, the euphoria is there, and we are able to channelize the energy of the youth into nation building. So this is also a hidden mantra somewhere, because they get a feeling they are doing the nation building, which they are doing. The credit goes to them where it is deserved. So that is what we want. Everybody cannot be a soldier. Everybody should not hold a gun to protect the country. But by doing these things, you're also helping the nation. You're also making the nation stronger. The nation is stronger. Foreign exchange reserve are bigger. We are more resilient. We are, more guarded, and we are more secured.
Hmm. Well, Mr. Sumit, you have illustriously explained the entire situation where the youth is being empowered. So, the next question which I want to ask you, that what things are basically motivating the foreign investor or the foreign people or the foreigners to come in India and to invest in startups. And how do you see the response of the local startups? Do they feel insecure, or do they feel that they are going to get more incentives, or they are going to get more empowered? Because at the same time, India is a small market as compared to, if the more startups come, people will start moving from one place to another place. It doesn't have that kind of a Silicon Valley, or although there are major companies which are investing in Hyderabad and other places. So what things basically attract the foreigners to bring money in India? What basically the Indian government offers them, and at the same time, what kind of reaction is the local the people who have the local startups, or those who come into the startup field?
Well, I must compliment you. It's a very interesting question. Let me try to summarize. There are five parts of answer to it. The point number one is, when the foreign investors looks at India, is the biggest addressable market today, because China literally you have to take out of the board. US is saturated. The third market, or the biggest market available to you by default, is India. With India retail only valued at 3 trillion in next 10 years, 3 trillion only retail. So now, if you look at the Indian aviation, buys the second number of planes in the whole world. Aviation is a different market, retail, education, everything is a multi-billion market here. Telecom, look at anything. Nothing is less than 500 billion in next 10 years, or going to 2-3 trillion. So if you are a CEO, you have to literally look at your future. Where is my future? Where I Because as a CEO, because I have been one. So you're literally asked a question: where are you going to get your next 100 million from? I was asked a lot of times, where are you going to get your next 100 million from? So what is your de facto? What is your backup plan? So if any CEO in the world is today, if he has to look, where are you going to get your next 500 million from, or where are you going to get next half a billion from, they have to look at a market which is there. China is out of the picture. Point number one. Point number two, Cheema sir, there is a complete ecosystem here which is supported by the government. Now, there are two kinds of ecosystems which are run by people and not supported by the government, and there is support run by the people and supported by the government through policies, procedures, repatriation, tax holidays, land, labor reforms. A lot of things have been put in a package and single window clearance. So that is the point number two. Point number three is the availability of skilled manpower. Do we have skilled manpower? Yes, we have the immense skilled manpower available in every nook and corner of the country. Point number four, the availability of the local market. Because if I'm putting, let's say, $100 million, I can see, can I even make this money from the local market? So the local market, we are a self-consuming economy. So the local market and the demand in the local market is good. Inflation is under control. The interest rates are a bit higher as compared to US and other countries, but still they are manageable. And that is one important aspect of it. And the fifth and the most important aspect is that when you look at the demographic dividend. Now, today, India has demographic dividend is the biggest opportunity. The amount of, let's say, if I'm making an iPhone, for example, something like iPhone, the number of units I can sell in Gurugram, I cannot sell in Rohtak, which is 50 kilometers from here. But eventually, with the increase of economy, with the growth of GDP, every place will be a Gurugram, every place will be a Bangalore, every place will be a, Hyderabad for that matter. So when people see such things happening, the future for next 50 years is safe. Country is secured because of the Indian Army. Country is stable, secure. It's not that somebody can walk through and literally walk through. That is not going to happen. Economic outlook is stable. Political outlook is stable and decisive. We are voting in decisive governments. We are not voting as those, where there are 10 parties coming together trying to make something, and which with a gust of wind it literally falls. We are giving decisive mandates. So I compliment the people of India for giving decisive mandates. Those decisive mandates give us stable economic outlook. And the current government of Prime Minister Modi and his cabinet is 100% pro-business. And if you see the diplomatic relations we have built, if you see the economic ties we have done, if you see the number of FTAs we are doing with everywhere in the world, so all these things somewhere down the line are contributing there, which gives foreign investors very too much of comfort to come here. Their money is safe. They have been doing business with us for the last 50, 60 years. Nothing wrong has happened here. And as long as the startups, because startups by default are all local companies because they have to be registered in India. So now there are only two categories, funded and non-funded. So funded startups have their roadmap, have their visions, and the people who are not funded, they have their roadmaps, they have their visions. So every idea, sir, does not need funding. There are a lot of ideas which do not need funding, and there are some ideas which need a lot and lot of funding. So the idea is now when then we have more and more success stories, more and more success stories are becoming the magnets. They are attracting more and more people. It is the success story which sells more than policy and procedure. What the proof of the pudding is in the eating. When you eat the pudding, you can really appreciate the taste. When we have these success stories happening across the length and breadth of the country, more and more people are coming. And why I'm very happy with one thing personally, I am seeing more and more women joining it. Because without women, sir, today in today's world, you cannot be successful anywhere. Your 50% of your population is women. You cannot have this mindset it's a male-dominated world, or women are only doing housemaking and all. No, unless and until they are involved in your major initiatives, none of your major initiatives work. If women have 50% of the vote, which determines the government of the day, how can women be kept out of the business? It's a very, very strategic call, and 45% of the directors in these registered startups being women is a proof of the pudding, and I'm very happy to see that. I would personally want more and more women-oriented startups to come. I want more and more women to come because that is huge untapped potential, phenomenally high powered untapped potential. And women by default, Cheema Saab, have got one capability which God has given them: multitasking. You and me cannot multitask so much what an average woman at your house or my house or the viewers which are watching us have. There's a gift given to them by God, and even today the biggest MNCs are looking for women leaders because that woman perspective, that multitasking, and getting those that mindset into organizations has become sacrosanct. If you look at any top MNC today, you will see most of the leadership hiring, I mean CXO level hiring, is now happening women. So there is a change in the thought process of the whole world, and we are kind of echoing that.
So don't you think that the men will be insecure if the women will take over? Because although we are living in a patriarchal society, so what will the reaction of the boys if the women will take over?
Shivasa, God has made a boy, God has made a girl. So either you have to go and fight with the creator. If creator has made one and one of us each, then respect the creator. Give them what is due to them. It's not a question of domination or being dominated. Whatever is due to them, whatever, if God has made them, if God has made them, we are nobody to challenge that. So whatever they deserve, whatever is rightfully this, that should be given. And unfortunately, in the Southeast Asia and in the countries, women have, for some time, have taken a back seat. I mean, the mindset is they're only housemakers. Let's not, they can't do much, they can't do. But in our society now, the things are changing, and I'm happy to see this change. I'll give you one example. McKinsey had told that in India, if we are able to get around 70% of the total women population working, and they are doing around a business of $100 per month, any business, small industry, a shop, or something, any very small, $100 a month, within 3 years, your GDP will double. Within 3 years, your GDP will double just by one thing. Now you can see the potential which is there and which is untapped. And now when I look at this 45% number, I think this really makes me very happy.
So, one last question I have for you, Mr. Sumit, and that is about the quality of the human resource for these startups. Do you think that the people who come from with this FDI and the locals, do they have the sufficient human resource for running the businesses, or as we have had conversations in the past that majority of the young boys and girls, when they get opportunities abroad, they move on and they say that let's earn in United States or in Europe rather than working in India. So how does this phenomena works of human resource because that is obviously a capital for any country. So how do you see that, and what is the quality of the human resource in that?
Dr. Shiva, there are three sides to the answer. The point number one is the number of people which go out of the country, US, Europe, H1B visa, put everything together, Europe and all. is not more than 1.5%. By that time, the quotas are full; they are done. So 98.5% is still here. So out of 98.5%, now I will be very honest with you, the people are now, they are. I have come back to India. I was in US and Europe, and I decided to come back. There are a lot of people who have even gone out of India and then they came back, seeing there's much more potential there, because for the next 50 years, this is the place to be in. Now, second thing is now if you work in US, you get 100,000, 200K, 300K salary if you're doing well, right? And you pay 45% of the tax. That's how it works. Germany maybe 50, 52%. Now, if you are in India and if you start a startup, if your valuation 5 years down the line or 10 years down the line is $1 billion, you have 70% of the stake, you are worth $700 million, sir. How many people in US, Indians, or any other nationality in Europe, France, Germany, UK, put all of them together, are worth $700 million? Here, there are a lot of such cases. So, and with it, what you get recognition in your country, you're building your country, you're strengthening the foreign exchange reserve of your country, you're creating employment here. In social circles, you get recognition, media recognizes you, society recognizes you. So you become a contributory hero, I call them. I call them rather a contributory hero, because here you're not only living for yourself, you are also, like, as I told you, sir, there are 750,000 people which are employed by these startups today. Now, we have created these many jobs. So it gives you also a feeling of being a contributor to the society and the country as such. The feeling is immense. Money, fame, name, recognition, contribution, wealth creation. And what else do you want when you're youth bubbling with energy and I'll say on the lighter side, and we are so young, smart, and talented, and your life is good. I rest.
Okay. So, thank you very much for sharing thoughts on that how this startup system is being given so much importance in India, and obviously in any government or in any place where the government really wants to create jobs, they have to create, or they need to give a favorable environment so that the people to create jobs. The governments obviously cannot create job, and with this rise of liberal economy and with the rise of this market economy, I think as we have more startups, we have more ideas, because I read somewhere that 20th century was a century where we needed human resource, but in 21st century we need energy and we need ideas. So if we have ideas and if we have human resource, obviously that is very important, and a skilled human resource, that is very much important. Thank you very much, Mr. Sumit P, for your time and for giving your valuable input. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thanks